you know, you kind of, I said in the intro that you kind of live at the intersection of drums and technology, and computers and drums, and I'd kind of like to get a quick overview of how computers started to be used in drums. I can tell you, in the early '80s, I had occasion to interview Max Weinberg from the E Street Band, and he had just begun sampling his live drum sound and loading those sounds into a computer so that when he played live on stage and he struck tom tom 1, the sound that would come out would be consistent no matter where they were, no matter what the venue was, no matter what the atmosphere was like. It would always sound like it was supposed to sound.
Because he triggered.
A trigger, exactly, and that's like 30 years ago. So please kind of give us an overview of how computers and drums came to be connected.
To be honest, the only connection between the computer and the drums for me is that the computer is an instrument, as a drum is the instrument itself. Use it as an instrument, the computer, the electronics, and use the drum set as an instrument.
Very good, right.
So, and
It's
because
just another
because
axe,
I mean
right?
I mean there was an old advertising from Simmons drums in the 80s, which was very aggressive. It said, I mean to make it a long story short, it says on the end, you know, this kind of electronic drum set will be put away the acoustics forever.
Right.
We are now in 2016, still acoustic drum here, but we have also electronic drums. But I had my problems all the years with the electronic drum set. That's not what I want. From my ears, I don't get it. Because, fine, there is a good sound. But wait a minute. The velocities of a lot of electronic drums, if you play a ghost note, try to maybe a good example. Try to play the Rosanna Shuffle. Try to play this on electronic drums and hear exactly the ghost notes. If you get those kind of ghost notes, you know, and the backbeat, like Jeff Buckow did it.
Right.
And you will hear immediately the velocity, the sensitive of the electronic drums will never, at this time, I don't got any electronic drums at this time which really capture this kind of dynamic range for ghost notes. Honestly, I mean, they are good, no question, and Ricky Lawson and I, we did also a sample session with cymbals, you know, for a company together for electronic drums, but at that point, problem. So, can we just stop one moment? Just.
Oh yeah, sure.
Sorry. And my approach is more the acoustic drum.
Well, yeah, that's kind of where I was getting. You know, is taking acoustic drums and doing kind of what.
Yeah.
And
So
this
I
is
come
what
now.
this is what Max was adamant, because he didn't want to use electronic drums.
No, his
he
problem,
wanted the sound of
Max
natural.
Weinberg. No, Max Weinberg had the problem because he don't hit right the drums.
Okay, well that's
and you have to understand one technical point. His problem was if he hits the drum, he hit it too fast. The wind, the air is going too fast through the shell.
Yeah, right.
Because if you hit too hard, the air is going too fast to a traditional sized drum,
Right.
and it shocks. That's the problem.
Gotcha. So it's the attack.
And hey, that's not for the public.
Right. I gotcha.
and that's the problem. So how you make this? Because if he has to make this, why he had problems with his wrist?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's
And
too aggressive.
ask Bernard Purdy.
Yes.
He knows very good Bruce Springsteen. There's also no New Jersey connection.
Right. Right.
And they have problems. And if he has to do this kind of MTV spots at this time, hey, you have to play more. We need more for camera.
Yeah,
Hello?
right. Mach show.
Yeah.
Okay, I
So-
got the ready to roll again.
Okay.
I got the lead in.
So, okay.
Okay. Just.
Just together. Do we need the? Do you have to change there?
No, that's okay. It's just
Yeah, it's fine.
it's okay for
Okay.
continuity. So as opposed to electronic drums, what your preference is acoustic drums, but using electronics to bring out the sound of the acoustic drums and make them consistent, make them even, so that when the drummer is attacking at different levels, there's going to be some consistency? Or how does it work? Let me start that again. Let me start that again.
Make it easy. You have acoustic, and you have microphones, and the microphones capture the
Okay,
acoustics.
okay. Let me
And
roll
don't
that.
make it even, because if you say even, everybody thinks it has to sound like a
Okay,
computer.
all right. Let me roll that in. Okay,
Okay.
so your preference is not electronic drums per se, but acoustic drums using electronics.
Let's say this way: we have since the 80s, we have electronic drums. We have since decades, we have acoustic drums, and they have both their place. You know, they have this where they sit, where they work, you know, and fine. And because the acoustic drum is an instrument, the electronic drum is an instrument, the computer is his own instrument, and use it as an instrument. I mean, use the computer, use the electronic drum set, the acoustic drum set. All those are separate instruments, and it's not to say they're against each other, because look back, I mean, okay, we know today everybody is sampling drums, you know, and is programming drums, and but a lot of producers going back to the real deal. They want to get back the acoustic drums, but a lot of people have problems to record drums. And
Well, recording drums is kind of maybe a lost art, or was becoming a lost art, because there are ways to mic drums that make it sound natural. I think the guys that worked with George Martin at Abbey Road were really pioneers in drum miking, because what they did with Ringo's drums, to be able to hear everything that he was doing on a 2-inch speaker was pretty creative, I think. But you know, you're working in a very larger, you know, more technological, sophisticated environment. Technologically sophisticated.
I mean, for me, I started, you know, with the source. I said, okay, my experience was very often, you know, engineers came to the drum set, they heard the drum set, they put some microphones on it, that's it. And then in the end, when you record, I'm a drummer myself at that time, you went back to you go in the control room and hear the drum set. It's not how I heard my drums, you know. Why is it so different, you know? And that was like a little bit the starting point, which I had, you know, when I said, I have to look in the sound, you know, and have to look about drums, you know, what's behind.
And how do I get from what I'm hearing to what is there?
Yeah, I mean, and it's a whole chain. I mean, it's a whole sound chain. It starts with the wood of the drums. I mean, you have to know which kind of wood has this drum. The beech wood, maple, cherry, birch. You know, this is the first step.
Because they all have different properties.
Yeah, I mean, it's the wood is one thing. You know, then the question, if I can recall John Good, for example, from DW, which kind of how the grain is. You know, when they make the shells. You know, do you have plywood? Do you have one-piece wood? The shell. You know, it's all those different things. I mean, you can have a maple shell, from the drums, but if the grain is vertical, horizontal, or diagonal, it will sound completely different. And that's, for example, a lot of knowledge what a lot of engineers don't have. They see only the drum set, put the microphone out, that's
Well,
it.
well, how did you learn? These are very like fine distinctions to be
Yeah.
able to tell the difference between a drum sound by the wood involved in a shell.
I mean,
That's pretty fine tuned there. How did you get your ears tuned to that point?
It's a logical step. What is a drum set? What is the most thing of a drum set? It's wood.
Yeah.
So then you have to know wood. That's the first step. I had the pleasure, because I live in Germany and I live only 80 kilometers away from the Sonar factory.
Nice.
And I'm going to the Sonar factory since my age of 11. So when I was 11 years, 1982, that was the first time at the Sonar factory. And that was the first time when I saw how they built drums. So that was the first time when I got like, aha. Few years later, when I started over, it was around in 92, 93, I thought about, okay, how to, in 92 I have to explain, I restarted to learn drums, when I was a kid. I played with my brothers and sisters, and I didn't have a teacher. You played and that's it. And in 92 I decided, I need a teacher, and we started really from zero. And when I did that, I recognized like the reaction of a drum, and going those fine-tuning stuff, said, okay, maybe you have also think about the technology behind the instrument. Because we have a big problem. When you learn guitar and you go in the lesson, what is the first thing what you learn?
Chords.
No.
No.
Tune your guitar.
Oh, tuning, yes.
Tune your guitar before you start.
Right.
And what's the first thing what a drummer learn?
Tuning.
No.
No.
Hold the sticks and start playing. And that's the problem. Because drummers not learning how to tune the instrument first.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a drumstick. Bye.
Right.
No.
No.
That's totally different to everybody else. And that's the starting point where really the mistake starts, and why drummer have also the problem in the studio work later. Because there is nothing. In the 80s, who show you that? There was no video, there was no YouTube. It was, people say this, okay, it works this way, you can make this trick, and they try to help you themselves, to get through it. And I got into that. I said, okay, start from the source. Where the drums are made, and I went to the Sonar factory, look again, met in 1995, 96. I met in 98 my first time John Good from TW.
Right.
And he has also this completely other kind of approach, about drums. And he really could communicate it and show it to the people very good in workshops. And that all made really sense, what he said about drums. And I picked that up and was thinking about. And then I came back to Sonar, said, what? I would like to make a drum set, with a very thin shell, reinforcement hoop, and things. And looked like me, are you sure? I said, yes, I want. So all of a sudden we create a new drum set, which came later, the Sonar D-Lite drum set, which went on the market. So, and the prototype of the Sonar D-Lite I have since 1998 at home and use this. So, and this was really like a good process to go through a drum set, and I have to say I did, before I start with my day job, I have a metal degree, I did metal school and learned about the metal technology, because we talked about wood, But if you don't know the metal and how metal react and interfere with the wood, then you cannot get the sound. And for example, if you have a hoop, you play drums yourself, and if you have a hoop which comes on the drums, it could be a seamless hoop, could be a die-cast hoop, could be a flanged hoop which have a welding point,
Mm-hmm.
and pick this hoop up and hear how the sound of the hoop is, and you will find out where the big trouble is coming from the overtones. All those different small things, if you can't put them together, then you find out why you can get those kind of drum sound out of a drum like Ricky Lawson, when you know all those details, and then it makes you on the end the job easier to go back on the engineering point. I mean, when you know the source, when you know how to deal with the source, you hear the full sound of the drum,